Challenging the monarchy in Thailand, protesters are breaking a long-standing taboo by calling for reforms. But what sparked this latest anger against the Thai king and government? And how will they respond? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Sika. For the past year, thousands of people in Thailand have been holding protests. They've been angry at their government and the royal family in particular. But a worsening COVID-19 crisis has once again renewed that anger and led to mass protests on the streets of Bangkok. Many say officials are not doing enough to keep them safe. Protesters are demanding a change of the entire political system. They want reforms to vague laws that could see a person jailed for up to 15 years for publicly criticizing the monarchy. On the one-year anniversary of their rallies, protest leaders say they're working on new strategies and will try to introduce new legislation.
This year shall be the last year that we will discuss monarchy reform. After this, whatever will happen, will happen. You can't stop the sun rising. You can't control what people believe in. We are here to fight to build a better future together. This year we will fight with strategies. We will fight with goals. Not only will we fight through protest to bring pressure, we will also fight to propose laws in Parliament.
We'll bring in our guests shortly, but first let's take a closer look at what the protesters are demanding. On the top of their list is the resignation of Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha. He's a former army general who came to power in a coup in 2014 and won a disputed election in 2019. Demonstrators also want reforms that will limit the powers of the king. And that includes reversing changes that give him personal control over a vast royal fortune worth tens of billions of dollars. They want Parliament dissolved and new elections held, as well as the rewriting of the constitution, which was drafted by the military. And they're calling on the government to end its intimidation of dissidents. All right, well, let's bring in our guests now. They're all joining us from Thailand in Bangkok. Jade Donavanik, chairman of the Faculty of Law at the College of Asian Scholars. He's also a former advisor to Thailand's Constitution Drafting Committee in Khon Kaen. David Streckfuss, historian and author of Truth on Trial in Thailand, Defamation, Treason and Lese-Majeste. And also in Bangkok, we have Pravit Rajanfruk, a writer and columnist for the English news publication Hasod.com. A warm welcome to all of you. So if I could start with you, Pravit Rajanfruk, just tell us what the situation is right now there, particularly in the capital, Bangkok, and where things stand right now with these protests, which, as we said, began as a protest against the government's handling of COVID-19, in particular, the Prime Minister.
Well, I mean, currently it's 25 minutes before 9 p.m. Bangkok time, and the curfew is at 9 p.m. This is the COVID-19 curfew from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. in order to minimize the possible infections. And as we speak, the riot police are mopping up the area where the demonstrators have retreated. That's around the area called Victory Monument. I think we expect some continued confrontation to go on, at least for the next hour or two, by a few remnants of the demonstrators who will refuse to just go home. So that's the situation. But tomorrow there's also another protest by a different group that will also call for the resignation of the Prime Minister, General Prayuth Chan-o-cha. So despite COVID-19, particularly the Delta variant, where Thailand is now seeing an unprecedented number of daily new infection at the range of about 20,000 plus per day. Today, it went beyond 21,000, and the deaths today, for the first time, above the number, the figure of 200. Still, the demonstrators have decided that they will converge, and they did, and they have refused to simply just go home without making the message clear. For the police, a lot of tear gas have been used, including rubber bullets as well as water cannon laced with chemical that would cause your skins to irritate. So the police are using quite a heavy tactic, and but on the other hand, a police van has been burned down late this afternoon. So that's the situation, and we do not expect the demonstration to cease in the foreseeable future. So this could become a weekly fixture despite the widespread outbreak of the Delta variant of COVID-19.
Indeed, and I suppose that this is gives you an idea of the level of anger of people out there. That there's no sign of these protests abating, despite the pandemic going on and the rising number of infections. So, David Streckfuss, if I could ask you then, is that adding to the long-term grievances that people have about the system in Thailand, in particular the role of the monarchy?
Well, I think we have to go back maybe even maybe a decade and a half, and look at the 2007 coup d'etat against the democratically elected government. And
this was the one that removed Thaksin Shinawatra from office.
That's right. Or 2006. I'm sorry, and then a new constitution was made, and the Thaksin-sided forces still won the election, and then there was some backroom deals done by the military, and then there were protests against that government and call for new elections. That led to the 2010 crackdown. What happened during this time, actually from 2008 or 9 until 2014, was a real opening of Thai society in a way that never had done before. People had access to information, and there was a bit more freedom to talk about the role of the monarchy. And that all ended in 2014, and with a coup d'etat and a new constitution, which is very undemocratic, almost impossible to change under current conditions. And that led to new elections, which have been, as you said in your introduction, were contested. And then one of the parties that was most popular among the younger generation was dissolved in February. After it was dissolved, the COVID crisis hit, and protests sort of disappeared for a while. But there was a real reopening of internet space and discussion about the monarchy that Thailand has never seen before, that led up to this now 1-year anniversary of demands made about the monarchy, not to overthrow the monarchy, but to reform the monarchy and make it a truly constitutional monarchy as envisioned back in 1932.
Jade Donavanik, the fact that there is even a discussion going on right now in Thailand about the role of the monarchy, is that in itself perhaps a sign of progress? I mean, this would have been unthinkable, wouldn't it, more than a year ago?
Well, let's say this way. If it's a discussion, or even at the most, the criticism on the monarchy, I think that can be said partially as having some progress in having some sort of reform to democracy with the king as head of state under the constitution. That can be accepted. If it's a discussion or if it's a criticism at the most. But what is witnessed in this country is not a discussion, it's not a criticism, but it's a devalue, it's a defaming. All these are not acceptable. If you are calling for reform of the monarchy, then the society as a whole will have to discuss this issue together. And you will have to listen to the polarization of the society. There is societal ideas of what the monarchy means to the country as a whole. Not only to those people who call themselves democratic, not to those people who call themselves new generation, not to those people who think reform to the monarchy is needed, but to the whole country. And not only within the country, you have to open eyes to what the whole world had done. Not only what has been done in France or what people did in France, what some people were saying. And this is just one issue. You have to separate the issue of monarchy reform or reform to the constitution with whether to oust General Prayut, whether General Prayut has legitimacy to be the prime minister, whether all these people who are administering the country has legitimacy to administer the country. The third one is that what's happening with the COVID-19 outbreak, the Delta variant, and whatever variants that we have, the situation of the COVID-19, do we have to do something with it? And do we have to find a way in which it's better than the Prayut's government will be doing or has been doing? And will other people do it better than Prayut? I think these three issues will have to be put in three prongs, and will have to be divided, and will have to be separated and talk separately. And I don't think that a protest, a demonstration at this point, which is becoming a riot, will solve all these issues. And this, if coming back to the question that you asked me, whether or not this is a progress, I think this is not a progress, and this is under developing the country.
So it's not progress to even debate the role of the monarchy. I mean, I'm not defaming the monarchy, not calling for their removal, but just simply having a debate.
I see. At this point, as I see, it's not a discussion, it's not a debate, it's not even a criticism, but it's defaming, devaluing the monarchy. So I think it has gone out of the level or gone out of what can be called as progress.
David Streckfuss, what's your, how would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, there's been a law in place since the early 19th century, but strengthened after a coup in 1976, that makes the penalty very high for any discussion or mention of the monarchy. Right. So
you're talking about
really the
Lese-Majeste law.
Yeah, the Lese-Majeste law. And the discussion of the king and the monarchy and the royal family have all been conflated. So it's really quite impossible to have any sort of debate in Thailand under this law, where all segments of society and all the country can talk about this law and what they want to do with the institution of the monarchy. Since November of last year, there have been more than 100 cases taken against the student protesters. And they can't debate. It's not possible to debate. Under the present parliamentary system, there's no way for them to bring a debate into Parliament. And there's no, so they really don't have any outlet other than the internet and protest. And it would be great if there could be a countrywide discussion about what to do about this law, what to do about the monarchy, but that's not possible under current conditions.
Pravit Rajanfruk, what specifically are people calling for in terms of reforms of the system? Obviously, there's a lot of anger right now about COVID-19 and the way the government, in particular the Prime Minister, they want him removed. But what else are they calling for to address their grievances, and will that be enough?
Well, for example, the Seoul factory or company which produced the vector vaccine Oxford AstraZeneca is actually owned by the Crown here in Thailand. So it's owned by the Crown. And unfortunately, this company, which is called Siam Bioscience, have failed to manufacture the target amount of vaccines in which we have originally anticipated. So this leads to a very slow rollout of vaccines. Currently, only 6% of the Thai population have been fully vaccinated. And now, simply because the company is owned by the crown or the king, the press are very reluctant to be very critical towards the company. So this is one of the examples which made it clear why the younger generations really want a more transparent and accountable monarchy institution, not unlike that, say, of the United Kingdom or even Japan. And they feel that without that space to freely discuss in a critical way on a mainstream public platform without the risk of going to prison, then there is very little that we can do to improve the situation as far as as far as the monarchy institution is concerned. So what they want is simple. In the United Kingdom, you can mock the Queen. Some British people may disapprove that, but that's part of the freedom. While in Thailand, actually, the Thai press cannot write negative news about the monarchy. This is, self-censorship is prevalent, and this is most unfortunate. So what's happening is that the younger generation push the debate onto social media. And as Jade said, there are defamation, defamatory remarks, expletive being used. I saw, terrible graffiti attacking the king, but partly that's because these younger people feel that there is no freedom to, discuss about the role of the Thai monarchy in a common, simple, and straightforward manner. It's not really possible, unfortunately. So this is one of the areas where they want to see it change. And of course, the Lese-Majeste law is one of them. And people like Anon, whom you cited, some of the protest leaders are saying that if there is no room for reform of the monarchy institutions, more and more people amongst this younger generation will be attracted by the idea of wanting to turn Thailand into a republic. So it's a give or take. Are we going to yield? Would the institution yield itself and reform itself to a point where more people would be satisfied, or will it continue to stifle critical debate, and of course, including defamatory remarks as well? So this is an area that has to be addressed. However, the elites has always been very dependent on the crown. Whenever there's a coup, one of the most often cited pretext or justification for the coup, including the one staged by Prayut back in 2014, is to protect the monarchy institutions. So you see the military and a circle of elites who are really coalescing around the palace. And for them, any meaningful change that would make the palace more transparent may not be to their interest. They want to maintain the status quo, unfortunately.
Well, let's put some of that to Jade Donavanik then. What about this argument that...
Let's put it this way.
Hold on a second. Let me just put the question to you first. This argument that this should be seen as an opportunity for the establishment and the monarchy to address people's grievances and look at some reforms, because if they don't and they simply respond with more force, they risk alienating more of the population, and that in turn may be a threat to their very survival.
Well, I think it can be an opportunity to discuss. But as I said, it will have to be in a reasonably rational ways of discussion. Or if you want to ask for a debate, then it has to be a fruitful debate. But what happened now and what is seen throughout this country at this moment and for quite some time, especially as David put it, a little bit before the COVID outbreak. That was not a reasonably rational discussion. That is arbitrary on the way in which, as Kun Pravit put it, that the young generation, or whoever call themselves the young generation, want it. It's arbitrary for what they want. As I said, it's not for the society as a whole. And what Kun Pravit was saying is quite of a threat that said, if the monarchy is not listening, if the elite is not willing to talk, or if this whole country is not ready to be reformed, as it is a democracy with the king as head of state, it might be transformed into republic. Well, Kun Pravit was talking about England. I would want to use the word of King Arthur in one of the movies, where the king said, okay, fight like you've never fought before. Because if that threat is on the monarchy and people who would want the monarchy to stay, then they didn't want the republic. They will fight like they've never fought before. It's not only the new generation, it's not only the people who would want to demolish the monarchy, who can fight. Other people can do also. So I don't think this is fruitful, and I don't think this is development and this is progress in this country. So don't use it this way. Talk in a good way. And when Kun Pravit was saying about the Siam Bioscience and link this to the monarchy, yes, it might be a crown company, but does it have something to do with the outbreak of COVID-19? And really, is it something to do with the way in which the Prayut's administration has been administering the COVID-19 situation so badly? Was it the Prayut's administration problem, or it's King Vajiralongkorn's problem? Does it have anything to do with COVID-19 vaccine? If the company belongs to the crown, and if there is no actual fact or no actual truth, no actual evidence, raising the issue this way is very unfair to His Majesty the King.
Okay,
and very unfair to the whole situation. So I don't think that needs to be put together this way. So I think you have to divide the three issues from each other. As I said,
Pravit, you want to respond to some of that briefly?
Okay, the Prayut administration
well, no,
is the other thing, and the COVID
hold on, let's just let Pravit speak for a second.
Well, yes, I mean, Jade is right, to acknowledge that actually we do have a deep disagreement in Thai society. Now, what kind of platform, what kind of venue can people of different political ideology could meet and talk? The truth is there are very few, and that's most unfortunate. And partly because even the press, the media, which should act as a public forum for the exchanges, they cannot function normally or in a normal way, simply because there's no room to be really critical of the monarchy. And this is most unfortunate. I think I totally agree. We need to talk, and there are disagreement, and there are royalists, there are ultra royalists who will defend the crown with their life. There is no doubt about that. Okay, but you have to acknowledge that there are also people who want now to turn Thailand into a republic, and they're not just wanting to see a reform. So Thailand has gone that far, and that's why you're seeing these people on the streets shouting expletives against the king, and we just have to censor. As a journalist, I just posted a photo on Twitter earlier this afternoon, and I have to deface some of the messages or graffiti painted on the containers that have been used as an obstacle to block the demonstrator from advancing to the office of the prime minister. I can leave whatever they want to say about Prayut, so I left it there, expletive against Prayut, but under the law, I have no choice but to deface those words. And it's unlike in the United Kingdom. Again, if you could say, to hell with the Queen, and you don't need to go to prison. Okay, there are programs mocking the Queens. I think it's called The Prince, right? It's just that's not possible in Thailand. Okay. So that's the problem.
We're gonna have to leave it there. Good discussion, gentlemen. Thanks very much for being with us, Jade, Donavanik, David Streckfuss, and Pravit Rajan-Fruk. Thanks very much for being on Inside Story. And thank you as always for watching. Remember, you can see this program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, you can go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle there is @AJ Inside Story. For me, Hazem, Sika, and the entire team here, bye for now.